This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello everyone and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host Mike Parkin, and joining me as usual are Richard Hawes.
Hello everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week we've got 8, count them, 8 films to review. We're going to kick off with the latest film from Chris Smith called Consecration. Then we've got John Travolta in High Rollers. After this, we've got Amongst the Wolves and Its Name Was Mormo, a found footage film. Then a bit of vampire fun with Bogieville. Then it's off to South Africa for Rust Road. Then back to England for Sweeney Todd, Slice and Dice. And what the hell, let's pop over to Hong Kong for Donnie Yen's The Prosecutor. Our short shot is Fireworks. And our DTV throwback is Grizzly 2, The Revenge. I'm sure we've got a lot to talk about that one. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Consecration. After the alleged suicide of her priest brother, Grace travels to the remote Scottish convent where he fell to his death. Distrusting the church's account, she uncovers murder, sacrilege, and a disturbing truth about herself. Okay, so Steve, this is the latest film from Christopher Smith. In the past, he did films like Triangle and Black Death and Severance.
Yep.
I think he did one called Creep as well, was set on the underground with, yeah. Anyway, so he's a pretty solid pair of hands as far as I'm concerned, and I think here for me, he does a good job. I do like films which are, you know, sort of like investigative procedurals, basically. So, you know, I like films about people conducting like an investigation when it's not their job.
Yeah.
You know, it's something they sort of get into. So she travels to this Scottish convent or nunnery where her brother was kind of stationed. Apparently fell to his death. But there's weird shit going on. The local constabulary are pretty suspicious as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, while she's there, she starts having flashbacks to her childhood, where her childhood was absolutely fucked up as well. There's weird sort of dream sequences and all sorts going on. Great locations, as is typical with Christopher Smith. You know, he does good jobs of like pulling the rug from under you as to what's going on. And the way things sort of twist at the end, so you know, the way it sort of like explains some of the unexplainable bits in her past, I thought was really good. I enjoy that. And, you know, it's not many films where you'll see a bunch of nuns falling from a cliff and literally going splat down below. So yeah, I mean, I think pacing wise, it's, you know, it's a slow burn to begin with. But, you know, the more she reveals about herself and the weird shit that's sort of, you know, with her parents and everything, I think this gets pretty good. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, you've got Danny Houston being Danny Houston.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure he does the same performance every film he's in. But it works, so I'm not going to argue with it. General Law, no, is she actually English?
I'm not sure, actually.
No, I'm not. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've seen anything since the Bleeding Neon Demon or whatever it was. As we know, I hated.
Yes. Divided opinions, that one.
She's from Nevada, so.
Yeah. All right. Oh, shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Good accent, then. Yeah.
Yeah. Decent British accent. And it is very strange. Well, like you say, it does reveal itself quite well. It does it quite late on in the film, but it works for once. You know, it's not just a 2-second, it actually
Yeah, it gives it time to breathe, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I enjoyed it. It was decent. I just thought it took a little tiny bit to get going because you don't. It's one of them because it is a bit of a slow burn. You don't find out till then what's going on.
Yeah.
First half an hour, you're still a bit like, right, okay, don't get it, but go with it. It is worth it. You know.
It's one of those where it's a fish out of water story, isn't it? You know, she's turned up for this convent. You know, they're all acting weird. You know, especially around her. They're not really sort of sure what's going on. It's sort of a bit like The Wicker Man to begin with. In that regard, you know, especially it's set on a remote island as well, so it's going to sort of draw those sort of comparisons, I'm sure. Now, I'm rather well known for my hatred of in media res.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll just mention we were talking about Sinners.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, and which I absolutely loved, but it starts with the most useless in media res scene. This one, believe it or not, I actually didn't mind the in media res because it is such an interesting place to start, and it's just such a weird thing. So the very first scene we get in this, Rich, is our heroine being confronted by a nun who pulls a gun on her in the middle of a street, and it's like, but that's all we get, and it's like, shit, But I must admit, there's so much going on in the film, you forget about it until the end, and then it's sort of basically the epilogue of the film. So it actually worked really well. It didn't spoil anything or anything. It was just like a moment when, okay, let's see where this is going, which I thought was absolutely great. A great use of in media res for once. Yeah, I don't really sort of want to go into too much more about what happens in this film. So I'm just going to go, what are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, it's a very solid 7 for me. So 2 7s for Consecration, the latest film from Christopher Smith. Go check it out. Our next film is High Rollers. Following the events of Cash Out, Mason Goddard is forced out of retirement when his arch nemesis Salazar kidnaps his now wife Amelia. Not only must he and his team pull off a dangerous casino heist, but they are caught between rival criminals and the FBI is hot on their trail. Interesting, Rich, that we get a sequel to Cash Out, which is... It's a film that we actually quite liked when we reviewed it earlier this year.
Didn't mind it too much, I don't think.
Yeah, it does have a sort of a low to mid budget feel to it, but I thought they sort of pulled it off quite well. So yeah, we get a sequel, and yeah, on the same sort of scale, I think, as far as budget's concerned. We get we got car chases, we've got helicopters in the sky and all this sort of stuff going on at the beginning. The heist itself is not too bad. There's a couple of crosses and double crosses along the way. It's all very standard, but all very watchable at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I say I quite liked the first one, and I thought this one was probably I like this one more actually. And I don't know, I think it kind of worked. Randall Emmett directed both. He's quite a controversial figure as a result of the documentary The Randall Scandal and stuff, and the way he's treated his employees and various things. So he's used the pseudonym Ives on both these films, but everyone knows it's him basically. So press releases go out, they don't say Ives, they say Randall Emmett or whatever. So it's not really hiding anything too well. But anyway, I think actually, I mean, I don't think he's, putting everything else aside, I don't think he's a bad director, because every film because he's most well known as a producer and financer, gets the financing and exec produces all tons of these movies. But when he's actually directed the films, I think he's actually put that extra level of care and attention into them, because they all, for me, they all tend to look good. You know, whereas a lot of this, direct to video or direct to VOD kind of movies that we see these days, they're very bland looking, and I don't think this. I think some of the first one looked a bit cheap, but I think this one's got a really good look the whole way through for the most of it. And then you've got the production value of, say, the helicopters and stuff that they use, like you say at the beginning. I was thinking, have they done some like reasonable CGI there or something? Because that looks pretty legit. I think
it did look pretty real. Yeah.
Good production value there. And yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm just going to say. I mean, this film is set within, some people playing with like millions of dollars at card tables and all sorts of things. So it's in a very high-end casino, and it's got to be able to sell that to the audience, and I think it does a good job. You do get the feeling of bling and money being passed around. And it's, they all look the part.
Yeah.
There's a really good bit. Yeah, I mean, it's so weird. It's one of my favorite little moments is John Travolta taking on this pseudonym of this character called Donovan. It's going, but that's a real person, But it's going, yeah, but he's a recluse. He never leaves Asia. He's fine, But he has to sort of like make it seem like he's this like billionaire, just walking into this casino sort of thing. And I thought it works. It just works that the way he carries himself and everything. He really sort of fits into the part. So I was quite impressed with all that. Yeah.
And what I'd say with we said this about the last one. These Rand Lemon movies, they often hire someone like John Travolta, and they disappear off screen most of the time. And you can't say that with Cash Out or this one. John Travolta is like the lead. He's there. Yeah. He's committed. He's giving a good performance. I think he's involved. He's not really passive and sort of yawning his way through it. He seems to be really genuinely committed to the film, which I think also helps it. It's the first one was more of a bank heist kind of setup, and
that's right.
The Ocean's 11 kind of stuff, and I think that worked. They have added some old music and stuff, and some sort of jazzy bits on the score and that, which all sort of emulates that kind of vibe. Say the sets and stuff. There's the other thing, apart from the production value of the helicopters and things, is you have this really swooping sort of drone camera work, which was also a feature of the last one. And some of those shots, I was like, they over-egg it, they overdo it, but some of them are really slick shots, and I do wonder how they got them so crisp. Whether it was whether they used some computers or whatever to make that work, because there's some really interesting. So it's a bit too much for me. It's very much like a sort of DTV version of some of what Michael Bay does in like Ambulance.
In Ambulance, yeah.
As a particular example, where it's just whooshing all over the place or whatever. But this is through quite tight corridors and back rooms. And
you just reminded me of that, because there was a lot of that in the previous film, like in like offices and cubicles and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. No, it works.
And I don't think it always works, but some of it, I was thinking, well, if that's what I think it's actually showing, and the characters are moving along, and the camera's got to try, this drone camera's got to try and move past them and stuff. I thought that seems quite a complex thing to coordinate. I was quite impressed in some of those shots. So yeah, I think everything that works, and also
go on.
Good cast as well. We've got a good cast. A lot of all the returning players from the first one. Did you notice the recasting
of
basically John Travolta's partner, his love interest, his wife? I don't know if it's his wife or his
it's supposed to be his wife. Yeah, well, it's Gina Gershon now. Who was in the first one then?
Kristen Davis in the first one.
I didn't notice that. I just assumed that they got Gina Gershon back. I didn't realise it was somebody different. Yeah, Kristen Davis. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. I think she actually fits the role better. Lucas Haas fits better in this one. I think he's got a bit more to do, and he's not as annoying as he was in the first one.
True.
That's that other the guy who was working in the bank in the last one, who ended up being associated to the bad guy, and he's kind of on their team now. He looked. I said in the first one, he just looks a lot like John Travolta, and now he's got
he
this
does.
Beard.
He's
like
got the same eyes. He's got the same eyes. Totally. Yeah.
So it's a bit odd. So yeah, it starts. It reminds it's funny because see, we've got Tom Cruise has got a Mission Impossible film out at the moment, and this is kind of like a similar kind of thing, but for John Travolta doing like this, that sort of caper kind of film, and he's got this ensemble around him and on a much lower budget. But I don't know. I think it kind of I just thought it worked quite nicely, and I was having fun with it, and I enjoyed the whole thing really, which is a lot. I expected it would be a bit of a slog, and it absolutely wasn't.
Yeah. Steve, what did you make of High Rollers?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's basically the same as the first one, but in a casino rather than a bank. Pretty much same setup. Yeah, I enjoyed it. The only thing that I thought was a bit disappointing was the ending. It just seemed a bit quick, over, done with, when the other team turn up or whatever. But apart from that, yeah, I enjoyed it. Like you say, it just rolls along, just cracks on, and then
the only thing which the only thing I'm going to criticize it for is at the ending when you got the bad guy monologuing.
Yeah.
That whole thing, it just goes on and on and on. Just to sort of give the cavalry timer basically. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell too much. Go on.
One thing I want to query is, okay, so they've given it instead of calling it Cash Out 2, they've given it a separate title, High Rollers. But the film has no. It's very much following on from the last film, but there's
very
no
much.
Yeah. And so you're very reliant on actually having seen the first one to try, if you can even remember what happened.
Yeah.
When they bring up these certain plot details and things, and this was the dirt box or whatever, and from the first film. And I don't know. I just kind of think that if people are going in having, just picking it's a random John Travolta film, High Rollers, they probably never come across Cash Out, whatever. So then they're watching this. I think they might be a bit lost, but I don't know.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that seems a bit of a mistake. I feel. I think they should have just called it Cash Out 2, so it was much more obvious. People knew, it's a sequel. Maybe I've got to go and check out the first one first.
Yeah, it's like jumping into Fast and Furious 5. It's like, okay, who are all these people? Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't mind doing another one of these. I wouldn't mind a Cash Out 3. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd be up for
that. Steve, what are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 7 again.
And Rich?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 as well.
Why the hell not? 3 7s for High Rollers. Go check it out, but make sure you've seen Cash Out first. Our next film is Amongst the Wolves. Danny, an ex-soldier, homeless in Dublin, meets Will, a teen fleeing a drug gang. Their encounter forces them to confront their pasts while navigating the harsh realities they face. Okay, so as it says, set in Dublin. We have come across this sort of film before. It's kind of aiming for something along the lines of sort of Dead Man's Shoes, or
sounds like.
Yeah, there was another one we covered a while ago, set in Scotland. I think it was set in Scotland. But anyway,
yeah,
I think you know which one I'm talking about. Anyway, this isn't bad. This is well made. Okay, the story, the subject matter is a bit grim. It's dealing with homelessness. It's dealing with PTSD. Danny comes out with a pretty grim story about what he saw out in Afghanistan. But the Aidan Gillen from the likes of Game of Thrones, Peter Littlefinger, he tells the most abhorrent story in the middle of this film. If you ever want to know sort of how evil is his character as the head of this sort of gang, and he sort of tells Will this story, and it is just like the most evil, sadistic thing you've heard. because it's about his dog. It's just like grim, grim, grim. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't want to give you guys nightmares. But anyway, so yeah, this is the sort of typical sort of thing, sort of this almost like a tug of war. So Danny and Aidan Gillen representing the sort of angel and devil on Will's shoulders, trying to help him sort of stop dealing drugs and all this sort of stuff. But it goes on a while. Yeah, there's some good stuff in here. Did I enjoy it? Probably. Yeah, as I said, it's well made. There's not really a lot of action as such. What there is, there's a couple of sort of fist fights and sort of tussles on the floor and that sort of stuff. A couple of nasty bits with a drill to the knee. But yeah, but it's that story that Aidan Gillen tells. It's just really, really, really bad. So on that note, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Go check it out. Our next film is Its Name Was Mormo. A young family's life unravels into chaos as a sinister presence targets each member in its own malicious manner. Through the lens of police evidence, Mark, Diana, and Mia endure the torment of a demon deeply rooted in Greek mythology. Serves them right, Steve.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. Absolutely. I got no sympathy for these people who decided to go fucking around in a Greek what's the word I'm looking for? Ruins.
Yeah.
These ancient ruins, go digging, knocking boulders out of the way. Oh, look, we found a metal box wrapped in chains. Let's open it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking idiots.
Yeah.
That sounds like the best idea ever.
Yeah. and then decide not to get rid of it.
Decide to get rid of it
when shit's going down.
Absolutely. Yeah. They realise too late what's going on, and then yeah. So the other week. Well.
Sounds like Evil Dead.
Well, no. These guys deserve it more.
Oh,
yeah. It's found footage as well, and it's just
it's a found footage movie. Now the thing is, the other week, I was complaining about an asylum movie I watched, which was found footage, but it gave no context of how we were watching that footage.
Yeah.
This one at least does that. It does set it up saying, "Oh, this is it's all police evidence. We've put this together from phone footage and all the rest of it." Yep.
But it does it in the middle of the film as well, which completely ruins it. It slows it. It just comes to a stop, and then this. Oh yeah, by the way, this is what we did, and blah 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 blah, blah. And then carries on. You don't need it. You've got it at the beginning. That explains it. You do not need it popping up halfway through the film, 3/4 way through the film.
Takes you out of the film a bit.
Yeah, it does completely. I mean, I'm not to say that the film's good. When it's not doing that, it's not great, really. But that really takes you out of the film, as far as I'm concerned. It just completely drags you out of it, and you're like, oh right, yeah, okay.
The other thing that annoyed me as well is how drawn out everything is at the end.
Yeah.
When you got like both Mark and Diana's phone footage, and they're just sort of wandering around, getting scared, jumping at shadows. It's like, oh God, and then when something happens, you don't actually see anything at all. You just you get some sound effects, and that's basically it. Yeah, I just got very annoyed with it, and I had no sympathy for them whatsoever at all. Oh yeah, best actor in the film is the dog.
Yeah,
the dog scenes were great. However they managed to get that dog, to act like it was like there's a presence in the room and the dog can see it. That scene was great. I'll give it top marks for that. But the rest of them, just very, very annoying. Yeah. Anything else to add, Steve?
Not really, no.
Not really. No. Yeah, I'm glad they gave us a context. And there's a couple of good spooky things towards the beginning, but after a point, you think, why are you still here?
Yeah.
Why are you still in the house? For one thing. Two, what is all that sort of crap at the end? Anyway, okay, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 5.
Yeah, 5 for me as well. That's exactly the number I was thinking of. You must be psychic.
Yeah.
2 5s for Its Name Was Mormo. Go check it out. Our next film is Bogieville. A young couple on the run come across a derelict trailer park called Bogieville. Gee, thanks, IMDb. That's really, really, really very succinct description of what's going on here. Vampires is what we've got. Now, a while ago, not too long ago, we covered a film about biker werewolves. Can't remember what it's called. And I'd say that was on a sort of similar sort of budget to this, but that one actually worked. I'm not sure this one totally works. I do like the idea going on here, but I don't know. It is so cliche. The whole vampire stuff they go for is just so cliched. The way they talk, the way they move. It's like, oh, really? You could be a bit smarter than this, I think. But there you go. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
I did like bits of it, but I did find a lot of it drawn out. But I did like the idea of these, this couple sort of like finding themselves being the caretakers to a trailer park full of zombies, not zombies, vampires. And then you say werewolves as well. I think that there are some good ideas in there. The fact that this guy, because it's his brother that got bitten originally. He's trying to sort of keep a lid on everything, but obviously the vampires are getting hungry and starting to drift off into local towns and start killing people there. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't know. I like some of it, not other bits. How did you get on with this one?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like you say, there's some bits I liked, some bits I didn't. I like the actual, the police, the sheriff and stuff, with the coroner. She's saying, "Look, I'm telling you now, it's vampires," and he's like, "Yeah, whatever, dickhead, yeah." But and then obviously it comes down to it, and the others come around to it as well. I thought that bit was quite interesting how they did that. And yeah, the story, it's an interesting way, like you say, like being caretakers in the day for the vampires and stuff like that. But it just doesn't work properly. Because I thought the effects were quite good. The beginning bit annoyed me. The woman in the bathroom.
Yeah,
that was a bit silly, I thought, because it didn't really fit with the rest, the tone of the rest of the film, and it just seemed a bit daft, that bit, really. But yeah, apart from that, it was okay. I thought the makeup of it and the effects were quite good. It was just a little bit lacking on the story, I thought.
Yeah, it just dragged out.
Yeah.
Rich, what did you make of Bogieville?
So I've got I think overall I liked it. I think it's too long.
Yes.
I don't think it. Maybe it's not as. It's not really bringing anything new to the table. I think there's some interesting aspects to it, and in terms of some of the casting and the production. So the film itself, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but to me it seemed really obvious that it was filmed in the UK pretending to be America. But it was like the design of buildings and everything over here is so different that it just jumped out on me straight away, like the petrol station setting and the garage and all that we saw. But I think for the most part, it carries it off. I mean, that British productions pretending to be American, or productions in general that are pretending to be America, is quite a common thing in low budget films over here. There was a film called Breeders with Samantha Janus that was I remember very much of. It was supposed to be set in a college in the United States, but it was very much not that. But then more recently, we've had big budget stuff like The Beekeeper with Jason Statham, which was pretty much all shot over here, but it's pretending to be like Boston or something. So I'm not. So I won't hold that against the film. I think for the most part, it carries it off, and some of the accents are quite good. The second thing is one of the leads, sort of one of the main supporting characters, is played by Eloise Lovell Anderson, who we met at Mike. You and I met at the Fighting Spirit Film Festival. She's done a whole bunch of short films with people like Jean-Paul Lai. She did Speed Dating, which was really good, and it's nice to see her getting leading roles in features now.
Yeah.
So she did another film called Firecracker, which I haven't seen yet, but that's she's in that with Andrew Lee Potts, who was also in this film. You'll find in this sort of world of these low budget British films, there's a whole lot of crossover of it's like they've worked on a previous film together, blah blah blah. Sarah Alexandra Marks and Lewis James also turn up at one point. The director Sean Cronin's worked with them on a few occasions, including a film called Escape, which was I think it was a Howard Ford film a year or two ago. And those two have turned up in a bunch of stuff, including short films by Blake Ritter and stuff.
Crumbs, yes, Speed Dating.
Yeah, Speed Dating. Yeah, Eloise Lovell Anderson.
Yeah,
that one. And what was the? Yeah, so Sean Cronin, who's the director, and he plays Madsen. So he's a very evil-looking. He's great at playing evil-looking guys. So he's been directing short films and stuff and as I think probably some features as well. Without checking his IMDb, I'm not 100% sure, but he's been directing and acting and stuff for a long time. He was even in Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation as I think one of the disguises that Ethan Hunt uses. I think, if I recall correctly. So he's been around. He's got a lot of experience. I think he's brought that to this. I think he's working with a really good cinematographer called Daniel Patrick Vaughan, who gives the film a really good look, and along with as you mentioned, the makeup effects by Tequila Carter. I think the makeup in the film is really strong. Some of it is a bit maybe some of the makeup on the little girl could be a bit more animated, but for the most part, I think the makeup effects across the board in the film look really good, and it gives added it gives the production value that the film needed. So you've got a decent cast. Oh, the lead actor's interesting because he's actually a German Indonesian guy. So the accents are a bit wobbly at times, and I was just thinking, is it an English accent or something coming through? And I was like, no, it must be like a hint of German, or German or Indonesian coming through. He moved from Germany when he was like 3. Anyway, Arifin Putra is his name, and he was in films like The Raid 2 in supporting roles and stuff. So that's interesting that he's kind of been cast. This isn't the sort of film he normally appears in, as far as I can tell. So he's been cast in this British-made sort of American-style vampire movie, which I think's sort of a coup for him to get that role. So Eloise Lovell Anderson's there, Sean Cronin, Jonathan Hansler, who's also done films like I can't remember. I'm sure he did one of the Frankenstein Legacy, which we watched.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
and again, he did that film Escape with Sarah Alexandra Marks. So I think good, interesting casting, good visual, good makeup effects. Fun, sort of interesting, sort of vampire action. Nothing sort of that novel, groundbreaking, but I think, if you like vampire, I'm not that struck on the title, I'll be honest. The whole Bogieville thing is kind of
it's a
incidental.
throwaway. Yeah, they mentioned once what. Yeah.
To be honest, personally, I could have done without that, called the film something differently.
Yeah.
It didn't really add any consequence to anything, really. And there was I don't know if this is just on the screener, but you had the pre-title sequence, the title of the film comes up, and then you get the production company logos.
That's right.
Which
Yeah.
I didn't like at all. I think you've got to have the production company logos first, because that just sort of took me out, and I was like, "What the hell's happening here?" And I like my credits to run in a very formula way. That's just me being a bit weird there.
Yeah.
But
I was expecting the title to come up again. Yeah.
Yeah, it was odd. I didn't quite. I don't know whether they formatted it. Be interesting to see if that's actually how it is on the final version, because this was what we watched was a screener that was prepared for Cannes, and the credits actually don't run entirely. They kind of, once the credits start rolling, like it sort of zooms through and the title just comes up and it sort of fades out. So I do wonder if it was like an alternate sort of pre-prepared cut for a sort of different purpose. So, but who knows? Maybe that is exactly the way it appears on thing. It's very unusual. I've never seen that before. I say that there have been at least one Marvel film where there's a pre-title sequence and then the Marvel Studios logo came up.
All right.
Which I think that was one of the more recent ones. But again, that's quite uncommon. You don't normally do that kind of thing. No. I think Marvel can get away with it in a way that a film like this doesn't. It doesn't really.
Need to squash that as soon as possible.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say I thought this was a step up for Sean Cronin and the team. Great to see some of these people in these roles. I do like Andrew Lee Potts, so I definitely, and he's only got a small role in this, so I do want to check out him and Eloise Anderson in The Firecracker. I'm definitely going to try and check that out. And not bad overall.
Yeah, I must admit, this is probably hopefully this is a compliment, but I didn't even notice it was, I just assumed it was shot in America, apart from the opening scene at the gas station that looked very British.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't really sort of notice, I must admit.
I could tell
another director who does that is Charlie Steeds. I think Charlie Steeds makes that sort of pretend to be, I think his latest one as well. They sort of do that, it's set in an American, and Andrew Jones did that as well. Back when he was having his run. Sorry, Steve, I interrupted you there.
I was saying I could tell. They were a bit.
Yeah. Now you mention it. The caravans in that caravan park were they're not the usual sort of like American sort of size kind of things. But other than that,
it's very much a sort of British. It's got a British feel to it. The other thing I was going to say, that Arifin Putra, I'm probably butchering his name, who's the lead here. He was also in a film called Foxtrot 6, which I've been wanting to see for a long time, which has still not had a UK release. That's a Mario Kassar produced film, Indonesian action film.
All right.
Quite,
the title that does sound familiar.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in the past. It's just still not had a UK release.
Oh yes, this is the one with Joe Taslim. Yeah, Joe Taslim.
In that one, I can't remember. But I do want to see it anyway. Interesting. Yeah, not bad. Interesting. This exceeded my expectations.
Cool. Okay, scores on the doors then. Over to Steve.
I'll give it 6.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll bump up to a 6. I was going to give it a 5, but I'm going to give it a 6. Now we've been talking about it. Yeah. And Rich.
I am a bit torn. It's practically a 7. I'm going to go 6 as well. I'll go 6 as well. But I think it's very much a high 6.
3 6s for Bogieville. And I will just say, I think I was wrong about Joe Taslim being in Foxtrot 6. I think somebody looks very much like him. But there you go. Anyway, 3 6s for Bogieville. Go check it out. Our next film is Rust Road. Two brothers are torn apart after they steal a bag of money and are hunted down by a ruthless killer. Um, when this comes out, Steve, I would be very surprised if the term "it's the South African
No
no
country for old
country for
men.
old men"
Yeah,
is
exactly.
bandied about, because there are very many similarities. It really does feel like that. So we've got these two brothers who are out poaching. They've just gone to this particular territory to hunt deer. And while they're out hunting, there's a bank robbery. And they shoot a deer, but the bullet goes through the deer and ends up hitting the getaway car in the middle of this reservation or whatever. And one of them goes and grabs, he goes to check on them, and finds a big bag of money in there. But unfortunately for him, one of the guys has survived the crash and is coming after him. And there is even the way his hair's styled and everything. There's a definite it's meant to sort of compare with Javier Bardem, isn't it, basically? But what did you make of it overall? What do you think of the film?
I thought it was shot well and acted well, but like you say, it was No Country for Old Men. It was like watching the same film, but not as good, because that's like a masterpiece. Yeah, it was also as well, like you were saying before, the first 5-10 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, so we get this interesting sort of prologue.
Yeah.
Which is it's explained at the end of the film, but basically it's like a folk tale about a guy who's, I don't know, he's like his evil twin is manifested from the earth and comes in and takes over his body and all this sort of stuff. It's very strange. But on the preview screener we had, that particular sequence didn't have any subtitles and was all in it was either German or Afrikaans. And I must admit, having read the synopsis of the film, and then it got this thing which is like playing out like a supernatural kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
I'm thinking, am I watching the right film?
Yeah, I was a bit like that as well. I'm like, I'm expecting, like you say, No Country for Old Men, and then there's this weird bloke coming out of the ground and shooting it. Going, what? What's going on here? And then not all that as well. The next scene as well, that's in Afrikaans. I think like the bank robbery.
Yeah.
And none of that subtitled as well. Cause quite a bit of that that's Afrikaans. I'm like, I'm getting a little bit lost in it. But then you get what happens. But I mean, like I say, I thought the performances were good, especially the two brothers.
Yep.
I thought they were really good. And the scenes of them, like with the alcoholic one, a bit of a mess. I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah. So that was interesting as well. Is who nabs the money? Because I kind of assumed it would be the alcoholic drug addict guy. The other one's more sort of upstanding or whatever. Not the case at all. So yeah, it's interesting. Sort of the way it plays out. I'm just trying to look. I mean, I can't find who the guy is. The sort of Javier Bardem sort of character. Can't find his name, unfortunately. It was a shame because I thought he was quite good. He's this sort of like really. Well, he's a Nazi, basically, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
It doesn't help that the two brothers happen to be Jewish as well, so it makes it sort of this sort of stuff going on. He sort of when they sort of meet, innocuously in the hotel, he's like going, "I didn't think Jews like you would be meeting here," or something. It's like very strange, terrible. I mean, he's got a very sort of thick German accent. But anyway, yeah, it is a very good, solid film, but it veers very closely to the plot and of No Country for Old Men for sure. I'm just sort of checking the director for a quick second to see if we've come across any of his work before. And I can say no. So it's directed by a guy called Robin Good. Yeah, he's got a few films under his belt. Actually, no, this is his first feature film. So
it looks like a lot of shorts, doesn't it?
yeah, he's done a couple of shorts before, but so yeah, very well shot. Lots of good sort of overhead shots and things like this going on. Very well lit. You never sort of really, you never left confused as to what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's a bit long for what it is, for sure. It's like, well, once everyone knows who's got the money, it's another sort of 10, 15 minutes before anything happens.
Yeah.
Just sort of arguing all the time. So, okay. Anyway, what are you going to score it?
Again, I'm torn between a 6 and a 7. I'm going to go 6. Like I said, I did enjoy it. It was good, but it's just No Country for Old Men. There's no getting around that, really.
If you've not seen No Country for Old Men, then I suggest I do recommend watching this. If you have seen it, it's more of a sort of curiosity.
Yeah,
I think to sort of see how instead of just having one guy, it's two brothers basically. Sort of with the money, but the end result's more or less the same. Yeah, we get this sort of epilogue where that prologue, the weird thing with the evil doppelganger is kind of explained or at least narrated for the audience. So I don't know if they ever intend to actually provide subtitles for it or not. Interesting. Okay, 2 6s then for Rust Road. Go check it out. Our next film is Sweeney Todd, Slice and Dice. In 1846 London, barber Sweeney Todd, grieving his parents' death by a corrupt judge, allies with Mrs. Lovett, who owns the pie shop down below. She was also wronged by the same judge, and together they pursue dark vengeance, with her leading their macabre plan. Directed by Stephen E. Smith, I want to say. That's it. Another, well, I was going to say low-budget filmmaker like Steve Wilson, but I think he's a slight step above with his production values.
He did that Borley Rectory film.
That's right, he did. Yeah, we did a while ago. This is definitely a step up from that as well. I was expecting, well, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but this plays out very well. If you've seen the Johnny Depp film, the musical, if you imagine that without the music, it's pretty much there. It's darker, it's more somber, but it kind of follows the same sort of beats. And I must admit, I quite like this. I watched I've got a Korean film called Princess Aurora.
I've got that.
Have you? Yeah,
I got it when it came out. I got a DVD. I've actually got Princess Aurora stickers with it.
Oh, you bastard! Yes. Well, I watched it again recently because now I've got my setup down here in the conservatory and everything. It's one of the films that I checked out from my collection, which I hadn't seen for ages. And this kind of reminded me of that, especially at the end. That's that sort of final bit. It kind of reminded me of that. So yeah, I must admit, I actually like this a lot. I thought the production values were good. I thought the script was actually pretty decent. Yeah, I'm all for this one. Steve, what do you make of it? Oh no, Steve, did you see this?
No.
Right. Rich, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I liked it. I've said this before on regarding the Steve Lawson film we catch. I have fondness for these films of this type. They've got a certain charm to them. These micro budget period British horror films made with where they've gone to find whether real locations or sort of like museum sort of locations, as is the case here, or specifically a theme park, a place called Flambards in Cornwall, is where they shot. And they get so much production value from filming in you go to these museums and they've got these recreated streets and stuff, Yesterday's World and all that sort of thing. That's what they've done here. So they've gone to this particular theme park. Now, as an aside, this theme park's actually closed down. So I'm not sure if they filmed this before it closed down or just after it closed down, but around the same time that they made this. Yeah. All that was sold and closed down. And this actual all these sets, these setups that they've got of all these shots, which is quite vast. That's all been sold off now to some other company, and they're going to turn it into some other attraction. Anyway, that's an aside. It's just quite an interesting thing. But the fact that they shot there and it just brings so much production value to the thing. And I think Steve Lawson, sort of alongside with Stephen M. Smith, who he's been around for ages as well. He's made tons of films. Yep. I've only seen like a handful of them, but I think he's very much working with that same formula that Lawson's got. I think this is very much on a par with something like Ripper Untold. Yes. Was that the one that was? Yeah. Because Lawson did 2 Ripper movies. Were they both period ones?
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. So I think this is on a par with those. I like. I quite like, because this project was kind of sort of, I think, initiated by the guy who's the lead here, who again it's kind of tied into that sort of British gangster movie thing of like.
He looks like he'd be rubbing shoulders with Craig Fairbrass, doesn't he?
Yeah, taken a character who's basically a gangster or a nasty piece of work, or somebody's otherwise unsympathetic, so an anti-hero sort of thing, and they sort of, you have to make him, he's a killer, and you've got to kind of make him sympathetic or whatever. Yeah. I think the film actually manages that. I think he pulls off. It's got a small cast, as a lot of things. So Terry Bird is the guy who's sort of the guy playing Sweeney Todd. I think it's his production company that's kind of worked this with Stephen M. Smith, and so you got him, and you got what's the lady's name?
Joe Dyson is the name of the actress. Yeah.
And then you got Stephen Brandon as Tobias, who's a guy with Down syndrome, who's kind of very key to the story, and sort of that brings out Sweeney Todd's, how makes him much more, showing his sympathy and stuff. So you've got all these flashbacks of stuff about stuff that happened to him and his family in his past, and they sort of show how he's actually, he's a big scary guy, but he's actually quite he's got quite a protective nature. Sort of a giant kind of thing, but he does get sort of tipped over the edge and do this sort of start killing these people. So they have to make the people he's taking out, they have to make them worse, so we're on his side. And I think they do it. I think the script works. I think the whole production, if you know what you're getting when you're going in, and you're not expecting a massive production like that Tim Burton movie, that if you go in for and you're open to a small, British, micro budget sort of production, really trying its best to work with everything it's got. I think that's what we've got here, and it's got that, like those Lawson films, and probably like some other Stephen M. Smith. The running time's very short, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. You've got it's like 80 minutes and you're done. It's like 70, 80 minutes. It doesn't try and stretch itself too thin. It's good. I liked it. I I thought it was quite a charming, if very violent, film. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. I think the title sort of like makes it sound like it's going to be more schlocky than it actually is. You know, this is a pretty good sort of retelling of the tale.
Yeah,
You know,
I think there is quite a bit of gore added in there, and you know, there's plenty of you know, they've got they're messing about with the body parts, and it's gruesome. There's lots of grue in there. You know, the effects on, you know, when he does do the slicing, and that is pretty well done.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like, you know, it's got horror-y stuff in it, obviously, but I wouldn't just sort of lump it in as just a horror movie. I think it's quite interesting. It's a bit more of a broad sort of character study kind of thriller kind of feel than
especially especially its depiction of like the judicial system at the time, and the sort of, you know, the class divide and things like that. I think it pulls that off quite well. Okay, on that note, Rich, what are you going to score it?
I think it's a solid 7 from me.
Yeah, definitely a 7. 2 7s for Sweeney Todd Slice and Dice. Go check it out. Our final main review is The Prosecutor. A former detective, now prosecutor, investigates the case of a young man who is wrongly charged with drug trafficking after being deceived by a corrupt lawyer, and seeks to restore justice despite obstruction from evil forces. Okay, this is directed by Donnie Yen and starring Donnie Yen. I think there was a lot of expectation after Raging Fire on this one. Raging Fire was the last film by Benny Chan. It was absolutely superb action movie. And if you saw the trailer for The Prosecutor, you think, oh my God, this is going to be awesome, because there's loads of really good fight scenes and some good stunt work. What the trailer doesn't show you is all the courtroom scenes, for which there are many. Because the case against this guy, so basically what happens is this guy allows a drug dealer to use his home address as a mailing point, basically. So like, you know, drugs are like, or sort of mysterious packages are mailed to him, and he just, you know, allows them to come and pick them up, basically. So that's his whole involvement. But he ends up getting stitched up by this lawyer who's trying to protect his real client, and he gets sort of sent down as a drug dealer by the thing. So Donnie Yen's character is trying to you know, help him, basically. So even though he's working for the prosecution, he sort of sees a case of injustice and tries to do something about it. There are some really good scenes in this. There's a particular sort of car chase thing going on in a multi-story car park, which is really, really good. Lots of good stunt work around that. And the whole end sequence is set on the sort of, you know, like on a tube train, where these guys are after a witness, and Donnie Yen sort of has to step in and protect him. So the big fight sequence on there, which is really, really good. But I think mileage is going to vary, you know, depending on people's expectations with this one. I've come across a few people sort of go, yes, enjoyed all the action, but you know, the other bits, it's like an episode of Crown Court, you know, with the wigs and everything, the wigs and the gowns and all sorts, you know. But it drags on forever, and it's, you know, he's literally sort of pontificating the, you know, the letter of the law and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, there is definitely a good film here. But it as I said, it depends on what you expect. It'd be interesting because I bought the Hong Kong Blu-ray a few months ago. I haven't seen the release, the sort of the international release, so I don't know if it's any different. Maybe they've sort of shortened those scenes. I don't know, but yeah, you're going to get a lot of courtroom drama in the middle of this. But there you go.
What I was wondering was Mike, is how does a courtroom drama fit with all the sort of martial arts action and stuff? How do they work that?
Well, part of it is, I mean, that there is a good fight early on where he just happens to be out with his friend, or he's meeting his friend, and his friend's meeting an informant who gets found out, and there's a big sort of street fight that they end up sort of getting involved in. But yeah, he finds it difficult to sort of step away from being a detective. You know, his bosses that keep sort of going on at him, sort of going, look, you know, you're not a detective anymore. You're supposed to just do, you know, you're supposed to be prosecuting these cases, not sort of investigating them, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting mix for sure.
I watched I watched about the first 20 minutes of it. So it's a big action scene that happens at the beginning.
Yeah.
Is he? He was part of that scene, wasn't he? If I recall.
He is, yeah, and because he saves the life of a. Yeah, he's still a detective at that point. That's his final case. I think like the bad guys actually get away in that. Or no, is it something to do with excessive force or something going on? Somebody filmed some of it, all sorts. But yeah, but he leaves, becomes a you know, a prosecutor. He's got his law degree and everything. But yeah, no,
I kind of got to the point and they were kind of introducing him to some of the other characters, and they were sort of talking things through, and then like the case sort of developed from there. But that's about as far as I got, so I wasn't sure. How is the sort of action peppered through the movie? Is it punctuation, or is it like just coming? Does it sort of really lead just towards a big sort of scene at the end?
No, there's another one where he goes to a nightclub to see somebody, and that turns into a whole thing as well. So yeah, there are about 3 or 4 sort of big set pieces throughout. Yeah, but there is a lot of talking in between in the court. Yeah, for sure, and it does get a bit confusing, I must admit, sort of trying to sort of put it all together and sort of, you know, from subtitles. But anyway, yeah, but definitely, you know, if you're a Donnie Yen film, he's still got it. You know, he's still able to do it. And I think this is a step up from the last film he directed, which was Sakra, which we saw a couple of years ago. Yeah, this flows a bit better, I think, than that one. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're a Donnie Yen fan. And on that note,
I'm put out by just as a note. So Sakra was put out by Signature Entertainment, who also then picked this one up.
Yeah,
so this one came out through them as well. So yeah, two very different films. I think Sakra was. I was really struck on that one. To be honest, yeah, that was a bit too.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's a bit flabby and sort of Marvel-esque.
Yeah. Some really good action scenes in it, but from a story point of view, so like, you know, it's introducing characters who you're supposed to, you know, who are very significant to the film quite late into it. You know, it's all very weird. This is sort of a bit more sort of straightforward in terms of like laying out its characters, but it's yeah, still quite sort of convoluted with its courtroom scenes. But even though, you know, even so, I did enjoy this, so I'm giving it a solid 7 out of 10. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Fireworks. An MI6 team running an operation remotely tangle with principles, priorities, and politics while the lives of ordinary people on the ground play out on the screens around them. A very good short, this one, guys. I wasn't totally convinced to begin with this sort of jokey tone, as sort of, you know, the people sort of coming into the office and being berated by the boss, and it's like, it's kind of almost jokey, but not, if you see what I mean. And but if when, you know, once it settles down into the actual sort of what's actually going on, and it's sort of establishing what was happening. I thought this played out very, very well. And I can very much believe, the stakes and the bargaining that was going on in this. Steve, what did you make of it?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, when it starts off and it's a little bit, it's not jokey, but and I didn't like the main character, the female, like the boss. I thought she was a bit of a dick, to be fair. But then you get more people coming in, and then it opens up a bit, and then you know what's going on, and you know what the actual op is and stuff like that, and then that's when it starts getting you. But having said that, it could be like that. You don't know. I mean, I suppose every workplace has got a bit of workplace banter and stuff like that, so you might, just to break some levity, you probably have got a bit of that in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I thought it was done really well, especially when like the screens, not the screen, but the wall becomes wherever it is. It's not dead flashy or anything, but I just thought it was done really well, and how that was incorporated into the actual film was done really, really well.
So that reminded me a little bit of there's a scene in The Matrix with when Keanu Reeves and Joe Pantoliano are talking, and he's got the screen. He's got like all the trickle coming down, and he's going, how it goes, do you understand? I go, yeah, but it's after a while you just see it as like, the people, you can sort of see it in the code, and that's kind of how I saw that scene. It's like they're looking at the screens from like a satellite view down, but they're able to put themselves on the street and sort of realize the sort of people around them and things like that. So yeah, I really did like that sort of transition.
Yeah.
And I do take your point about the main character being a bit of a dick, but as the people are coming into the room, she becomes, by comparison, less of a dick because they're all dicks. Yeah, they really are. And you can sort of say, yeah, I could see why she's acted that way because the people around her, especially her boss, comes in. Yeah, but there you go. There was an actress on there's a comedy series called The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And she reminded me of a character on that, sort of very privileged, kind of oblivious sort of person. Rich, you dug out this one. What can you tell us?
It's the second short film from Paul J. Franklin, who's a visual effects expert. He's mainly done sort of very high-profile feature films, including working with Christopher Nolan a whole bunch of times, and most recently, The Final Reckoning, the new Mission Impossible film. So he was visual effects on that. And so that's where things like the environment and that transitional shot of they're in the MI6 room, but then it sort of overlays that on location sequence. There's stuff like that's the kind of stuff that he's sort of working into this. And his previous film he did it was called Escape, which he made with Julian Sands, Art Malik, and Olivia Williams, which was also a film which had like a bit. It wasn't too much, but it was like as the film comes to an end, there's this big special effects shot of like something you might see out of The Day After Tomorrow or something like that. It's an interesting film. It's worth checking out if you find it. I do think this one's a step up. It's a very solid, tense thriller, but with humor. I say it's about 15 minutes long. It's got all its characters. It's like kind of that kind of Office kind of thing.
Yes,
they're very much detached from the severity of sort of the situation. They're kind of lost in their own small concerns, their own and the hierarchy of the situation and stuff, rather than they're trying. There's a sort of an ethical dilemma sort of rearing its head, but then parts of it like they're kind of like, just get on with it kind of thing, or compromising their own sort of perspective because they might get something out of it for themselves. So there's things like there's little weird stuff like there's one of the guys comes in and he's hungry, so he wants to eat something, so they get something that one of the other people has brought the boss something to eat. It's a vegan thing, and she's not vegan. She doesn't like the taste of it. They put it down or whatever. One of the other characters picks it up, hands it to the guy who's hungry, and then he's eating it. And they're like, "You're not eating in here, are you?" Because they're not supposed to. And he's like, "No, I'm not eating." So there's a little weird humor that they're focusing on, but the sort of serious sort of on the ground situation that they're in charge of overseeing it, and deciding are they going to use their drones to do a strike, and have is there going to be collateral damage and stuff. And then we get cutaways to that actual environment, and we focus on a mother and her daughter, and that's sort of like becomes the sort of focus, sort of the emotional focus for part of the film, and there's that disconnect between those two things, and that's kind of what the film is sort of talking about. It was made in 2022. It's just turned up on the NITV Shorts YouTube channel, which is Northern Ireland Television. I'm not sure if it's appeared anywhere else, so this might be like its online debut. I'm not 100% sure. It could have possibly appeared somewhere else, but I'd never come across it before. It's new as far as that goes. It's probably doing film festivals and all that sort of thing at the time. So yeah, very, very solid, and very interested to see, Paul Franklin's attached to a couple of things, but he hasn't got anything sort of going yet. But he's definitely got an eye, and I think if you look at something like some of the Christopher Nolan films, I think you can see he's been influenced by that work. I think that in terms of his storytelling and stuff. So this was a good.
Rich, you cut out.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, just stay at the end.
All right. So, this is a good one, basically.
Yeah, definitely was. And it's interesting. There's certain films we've been watching recently which I can sort of pick apart and think, I can sort of visualize how I would do things differently. But with something like this, it's just so sort of slick. It's like no notes, it's all there, basically. It makes sense. It flows. It's just really, really well done. Very well edited as well. So there we go.
Films like Eye in the Sky that Helen Mirren did, or that drone one Sean Bean did. Because I think that's kind of what this fits into, stuff like, or even there's an element of Land of Bad, actually.
Yeah.
We watched that recently. That was, Russell Crowe. He's in the control room kind of thing. Kind of those kind of setting. If that's what this setting is, it's just sort of set all entirely in that space, and it's about, these are films and shorts or whatever about that kind of new sort of halfway house sort of approach to warfare. So it's not just the suits in the office telling we want the troops there or whatever, and they're just sort of making this completely detached thing based on the intel. These are people that are sort of in the halfway house of, like, they can see what's going on, but they're also working under, like, the ministers and stuff like that, which is what they reference here. So you've got Donna Goff's character is she comes in later into the story, and she's the one above the woman who's sort of who's the lead in the room, but she essentially the boss, and then she's on the phone to the minister, and they're trying to coordinate what they want, and it is like, is there a cover-up kind of thing going on, and should we do it, should we not do it, and all this sort of stuff. And I think there's these ethical dilemmas that play out, and I think it's quite an interesting thing. That's there's a lot of room for all these sort of films and that to explore.
Absolutely.
Wow, and say this does do it well.
Totally. Now, we do not score the shorts, but we do recommend you go check them out. And you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. So go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Grizzly 2 Revenge. All hell breaks loose when a giant grizzly, reacting to the slaughter of grizzlies by poachers, attacks at a massive big band rock concert in the national park. Phew, thanks IMDb. Okay, so from what I can gather, this was originally filmed back in 1981, I think.
Yeah, I think
Some time around there, but was never actually finished. Someone sort of managed to sort of piece it together. Apparently, there's a working print going around for a while. The added bits, some ADR work and that sort of thing to it to try and sort of finish it off. It is very obviously not finished off at all. I mean, have you seen, guys? Have you seen the original Grizzly film?
no.
No, I haven't. From 1970.
Yeah, it's worth seeing. Even if you just look at the trailer, you'll see there's lots of like limbs being ripped off and all sorts. It's quite well done in terms of sort of gore and things like that as well. This is missing all of that. It's missing the bear basically for a lot of it. Instead, what we get is Jason Voorhees wearing a Darth Vader mask by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
We got this grizzly acting as if he's in a bloody Sasha movie. Breathing way too hard to sort of let us know where he is. Now, the opening credits of this make a big thing of 3 cast members.
Yeah.
Chiefly, we've got George Clooney, Charlie Sheen, and Laura Dern, exactly. Turning up, but blink and you miss it. Basically, they're there for the
Yeah.
prologue.
They're dead in 3 minutes.
Yeah, luckily, if you did miss it, the end credits sort of point out who they, what they actually look like back then, because most people are going, George Clooney, where is he? But for me, and I'm sure you guys spotted this as well. I mean, for one thing, you try to get your head around Jonathan Rhys-Davies playing a At first, you think he's supposed to be a Native American, but then later on in the film, it's explained that he went a bit doolally and then took on the persona of like being a Native American. But his performance is fucking brilliant in its own. But did you guys spot Timothy Spall in this?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd spot him.
Yeah.
I saw him in the background on one of the scenes, and I was like, "Is that?" And then he actually he's had some dialogue, and I'm like, "No, it's Timothy Spall. What the hell is he doing in this film?"
It's just so bizarre. I mean, of all, it is just the most bizarre bit of casting. He must have been on. Yeah, exactly. That's what his character is. I think he's a roadie or like extra security or something, because he turns away those sort of bigwigs at one point. Go, no, you can't come through. But yeah, was he on holiday at the time? Did he actually, specifically go for that role? Was he trying to make it in America? God knows.
Jobbing actor and
I just thought it was.
Yeah.
I just thought it was brilliant. Timothy Spall. But
he's like such a prestigious actor now.
Yeah,
but you can't even really imagine him. I mean, Jonathan Rhys-Davies has always done these kinds of movies. Yeah. And he does prestigious stuff as well, but not in the same sort of league as if it's Jonathan Rhys-Davies has always had a great genre career. The high, he does like Lord of the Rings, and that's what he's known for now and stuff. But he's just done B movies of all types over the years, and he gives it his all in this. And I thought he was great. He's definitely out of all the stars in this movie, which also include Louise Fletcher from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He's the one who's sort of going all in, I would say, and it's a real shame. So when they've sort of edited this film and put this tacked on, obviously shot now, sort of stock footagey kind of opening with some visual effects sort of added into it, and then they put these credits on just to sort of, George Clooney, Laura Dern, Charlie Sheen before the title cut. It's pointless. They didn't even, there was no reason to do that. Sure, put it on the poster or whatever. but not on the film itself, because they're not the main characters by any stretch of the imagination. They're incidental teens who get killed in the opening scene. So it's sort of that was a bit annoying. But Jonathan Rhys-Davies, he should have been top billed on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Come on, Steve.
the thing that's got me, obviously, it's set around this concert that's been
fucking concert.
How much fucking concert footage do you need in it? There's like five full songs in it.
Yeah. And it's not a long film. This film's only about an hour and 15 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, all right, you're panning it out, but Jesus Christ. And it's not as though it's like your proper cheesy shit 80s sim stuff as well, isn't it? You know what I mean?
There's shots of like thousands of these denim-clad sort of teens wearing Kiss t-shirts. I'm like, what are they going? They're going to be sorely disappointed when they get there.
But did you notice again where they sort of add in these both sort of what do they call it? Rehearsal footage. There's the rehearsal footage, and then they've got the actual concert footage.
Yeah.
But then they added in some modern footage, which is like clearly from like a, you know, it's just been shot kind of a new band, and they've just added that in to sort of pad it out, I guess.
Pad it out even more. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the songs are pretty terrible. it's like pretty personally bad. And there's this one character, I think it's the one called in the musicians, like the Predator, I think, and the actor, sort of the singer who's that main singer who's singing this sort of really cheesy sort of walk of life. That sort of, I don't know. And he's kind of introduced as this love interest, I guess, for an underdeveloped character called Chrissy who turns up.
Yeah.
And then so they have a scene where they haven't developed their relationship at all, but suddenly he's rejecting her, and it's supposed to be a thing like some weight to it.
I'm just a minstrel, baby. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's very weird. But again, I think it's all to do with the fact that, like you say, it was probably incomplete when they made it. So they've tried to pad out some of the scenes, and other bits they just haven't been able to, or something. I don't know. It's Hungarian. So the original was like a Hollywood production, but this one's sort of, I think the director was Hungarian. It was shot in Hungary. They actually did put on the concert. So you see that you see some sort of wide shots of the whole of the concert.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah,
there's loads of people there. They did actually do that. There's only a few shots like that, so at times it feels like, oh, they didn't. You know, there's not a lot of concert stuff there. But the whole lead up is, you know, it's that Jaws thing. They're going to put on the thing. There's the Louise Fletcher character saying, "Oh, I'm not going to even listen to you talking about this threat of a bear coming, and we're just going to keep going." And then, of course, what's going to happen? The bear's going to come and attack the concert. But they didn't have the money to do the big attack the concert thing. They kind of do a bit of a backstage climax.
Also, the worst that happens is the fireworks go off a bit early.
Yeah,
because he set them off. Yeah,
the bear actually never gets to the front of the crowd. The bear's always in the back. Yeah. And it's there's a real rushed showdown where there's a bit with a forklift, which I think there's some I've seen that done in like I think it was one of the Carnosaur films. I think it was the first Carnosaur film actually. They did they used the forklift truck to sort of go up against the or
it doesn't work though, does it? I think then they just sort of swipe it and falls over.
Yeah. And then but they didn't have the money to do the effects, so all of a sudden, so 1 minute the bear is supposedly attacking, and the next minute, it's embedded in the wall kind of thing, and then the film ends. It just ends. It just stops. But before that, we've got this, before that very choppy showdown with the bear, you got all this stuff with, you just watch a lot of concert footage. You've got some very speeded up Jeep footage of them, of a couple of the main characters sort of rushing around to try and warn people and save them. But apart from that, the only real interesting stuff that's happening is hanging out with Jonathan Rhys-Davies's French Indian trapper, you know, lifting huge tree branches and stuff, and you know,
we've got those other guys. There's those other guys, isn't there? Because the poacher who gets killed at the
Oh
beginning.
yeah, we spent a lot of time with those guys as well.
And then there's his brother and the other ones, and
that's like in the first half of the movie. We've spent a lot of time with them.
Yeah,
I think.
they turn on each other as well. I think because it's going, oh, that's like 100,000 divided by 4. But if there's only 2 of us, yeah. That was quite funny. Yeah, it's just weird, and it's just that sort of choice of like, obviously that they didn't have a bear suit or anything. There's
Like
there's no gore effects or anything, so you don't see anyone actually die.
Yeah.
There's a couple of very, very weird edits.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a few weird edits, like rushed, like the character's doing something, and then all of a sudden there's a death, or you actually cut away before the death even happens, or something like that. Weird stuff happening. The only real consistent in the film is all the concert footage that they've added in, either shot on location when they put on the concert, or other stuff that they've edited in to try and pad it through. So more they've added, instead of more bear, there's more music. So so they didn't. We needed more bear. There's barely any bear in it. It was funny because we had Crap come out recently, which is another film which kind of really focuses on concert footage. Of like,
which one? Sorry,
Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan film.
Oh yeah. Of course.
We stopped the film to basically watch these concert scenes with his daughter, which I've come to like that film a lot more.
It's my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film.
Is it? I was like, I was really let down by it the first time I saw it, but now actually, although there's those things that I didn't like about it, I've actually got really warm to it, and I'm like, it's the kind of film I want to show people to see what they think of it. So I've watched it like 3 times now, and I do enjoy a lot about it. I'll always keep coming back to it now, I think. But this one is kind of, it's doing a similar thing of like dwelling on but they're not really developing that in any way. They're just, because at least in Trap, those sequences ultimately lead to us. Oh, actually, she's going to become a more important character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
spend more time with her. And here, we don't actually get to know any of these performers.
They're never in any peril or anything.
Yeah, no, they're not even. No, they don't get killed. They don't get introduced. It's literally just footage for footage's sake.
Yeah. So if I mean, actually, Steve, what did you make of this before?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's fucking terrible. It's really bad. But like you said, just sticking their names on the front for the 2 minutes they're in ain't going to do anything. And it's a shame because, I mean, years ago I actually worked with Louise Fletcher, and she's such a nice person. She was lovely, and to be kind of slumming it in this is just. I felt bad for her, to be fair. I really did.
This
acting, Steve.
Sorry?
Did you do some acting, if I recall correctly?
Yeah, I was up 13.
Yeah, I remember. Oh,
so
she was in the stuff that you were working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, cool.
But yeah, it's awful. It really is. I mean, you know it's bad when you've got at least 10, 15 minutes of this concert that's awful, and it's only an hour and a quarter long. We have watched a few of these lately, haven't we? Where they've been rediscovered and
exactly, like New York Ninja, and I think there's another one redone.
And I mean, they're not going to be good. They're going to be terrible. But sometimes they've got a bit of charm, like Samurai Cop or something like that, But this one, it's just a bit flat, really. I think the only thing going for it, really, is Jonathan Rhys-Meyers.
Davis.
Yeah, sorry.
Davis, yeah. No, I think
off his head.
I couldn't believe it when I saw him in this, because I didn't see his name in the credits. So him and then Timothy Spall.
Yeah.
It just killed me.
Ian McNeice is in there as well, but I didn't.
Oh my god!
The film was so it was made. I think it was like 82. I think.
Yeah, 81, 82. It was originally shot.
It got caught up with basically financial difficulty, and then it sort of went away. There was some legal things going on. And then it's basically sat around, and then I guess one of the producers sort of picked it up again and decided, you know, that you can go. There's a Grizzly 2 Revenge website which has got like a statement from the producer. So because the director himself died in 2006, so he never got to finish it. But
that's a shame.
But yeah, they kind of released it, and they're saying, oh, there's not been any, you know, big bear films for a long time, and people. And I was thinking, well, they definitely have. We've talked about a couple, at least one.
Oh, Into the Labyrinth as well. The you know, the one with Thomas Jane and that was a big bear one.
Yeah. So that's nonsense. So that she was saying. Yeah. It's a kind of. But it was interesting because as a complete aside, we've got the recent case or the current case of Kung Fury the movie, or Kung Fury 2, however it's named. Kind of in a similar situation. It's caught in this sort of legal wrangling that's preventing its release, and I know that in the case of that film, it's actually complete, and hopefully eventually, and hopefully not 37 years later like this one was. That it will come out, because some footage from that leak. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it, but the footage that was leaked on the internet is just amazing. it's just absolutely fantastic. So I know it's going to be a very different kettle of fish to this. You know, this is kind of a bad film that was always going to be a bad film, but they kind of managed to sort of give it sort of a cult sort of release, and I do think it's worth seeing for, you know. I don't think it's worth seeing for the George Clooney and Charlie Sheen stuff, because that's nothing. You see it for John from Rhys Davis, and look out for Timothy Hall and stuff like that. I think it's worth watching.
Absolutely, and the bizarre concert footage. As well.
Random. Very random stuff.
Indeed. Yeah. So this is on Plex. It's probably on other platforms as well, but we found it on Plex. Definitely worth a look. And it's got huge curiosity value for sure. I just wish they'd put the carnage in, the gore, basically, which is sort of very sorely missing. Okay, that is the end of this week's show. A marathon one, 8 films covered. Thanks to Rich and Steve for helping me get through these. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and X and Blue Sky at the DTV Digest. And we keep promising we're going to do the short shots soon. We definitely are. Other than that, thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.